10 minutes. We did it.
Welcome. I am Carson Angeli. I'm the host on Happy on the Fly. I'm also the student president of the State High Anglers Club and also a member of the U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team. I just want to say a great thanks to Jim Lanning for hosting us at Camp Breesey today in State College. I want to support and say thank you to our State High Anglers Club and YouTubers that are watching us right now. We have a very special host here today, a nationally known fly fisherman, educator, conservationist, author, and star of the film Live the Stream, Mr. Joe Humphreys. How you doing, Joe?
Nice to be with you, Carson, and I hope we can enlighten some people today, and maybe we can be enlightened. So it's nice to be with you, and let's get on with it.
Perfect. The first question I would ask you would be, what got you into fly fishing in the first place?
Well, you know, when I was a child growing up, I caught my first trout when I was 6 years old, but that was with bait. And so bait fishing was the way to go. And then within our area here and just upstream a few miles was the famous Fisherman's Paradise. And it was all fly fishing only. So what a stimulus and what a wonderful thing to have right in our backyard. Fisherman's Paradise was the first all fly fishing project, I think, in the United States. It started in 1934. Excuse me. It started in 1943. And I got the numbers twisted, but that's all right. At my age, I twist a lot of things. So anyhow, it was just a natural thing. The stimulus and the people, the famous people that came in to fly fish, Ray Bergman and George Harvey, and people from all over the world came in here, and so fly fishing was just a thing to do because of the influence of Fisherman's Paradise. So that's one way it started, but the other way it started is when I was bait fishing and the fish were not taking bait and they were taking insects, and I said, there's got to be another way. And so when I was just a kid, I must have been about 12 years old, I took my first trout on Thompson Run on a fly that I fashioned. I had not had any luck trying to catch a fish, and I could see a couple of fish feeding regularly, and they were moving back and forth under the water, and every cast I made, I frightened the fish, and it was not a wonderful event. So, in frustration, one day I simply walked into the water and with my tennis shoes and grabbed a handful of vegetation, and it was alive with what we know now. I didn't know what they were then, but freshwater shrimp. So I found some fur, and I got some orange thread from my mother's sewing box, and I fashioned what I thought was something that might imitate it. And I went back the following day. There the fish was feeding. I was watching and finally I made a cast. It was not on target, but the fish moved for it, came over, picked the fly up. I hooked the fish, flopped them out in the bank. It was a 14-inch brown, and I put it in my basket and pedaled home, singing at the top of my lungs because I was thrilled. I was so excited. So that was the first fish I had taken on a fly, but that was the stimulus, and that kicked me right in the tail to keep going. So, yeah.
Thank you, Joe. And you know what? When I was starting out fly fishing, I saw your video and I saw you explain that, and I did exactly the same thing. I tied my first Cress Bug, and I added some orange to it, and I got my first brown trout on that fish. I mean, it was a very small fish, but that was the start of my fly fishing experience too, so I want to thank you for that. Now we're going to get into the basics of fly fishing. I have a couple of questions here just about the basics on how to get into fly fishing. So if someone was interested in going to fly fishing, they haven't started, they don't have any gear at all, what would be one advice for them before they start?
Well, if you really have a desire to fish, and this is what you really want to do, then you first have to find proper equipment. You don't have to put a lot of money into the equipment, but you need a rod, a decent fly rod, and today with the materials that they're making the fly rods with, they're making a lot of beautiful rods for a very reasonable cost. For probably $150 you can get rod, reel, line, and that's the outfit that you can buy from different companies today at that price range can very well be maybe all you need, not only to start with, but to continue with. What happens if we get caught up in this game? Yes, and I love to fish the brush, so I have a 7.5-foot rod, then I have a 7-foot rod. Then in some areas when I'm nymphing, I want to keep my line off the water and reach and have greater drifts with nymphs and dry flies. So to keep more line off the water and have a greater natural drifts and better line control, I might even go with a 10-foot rod. So and it depends on the water you're fishing. A long rod, you can lift over a lot of currents on big rivers. And so, you know, it gets into this, but it doesn't have to. And one thing that I would recommend, and I know they're difficult to buy today, but a double taper line where you can use both ends, you wear one out, then just switch it around, and then you can use the other end. But not only that, rather economically it's advisable, but when I'm working water, I don't want to wade forward. If I take a wade forward into the mountains, it's nothing but frustration. My cast, it will dump a good cast, and that's the last thing I need. And so I don't want that heavy front forward taper on when I'm fishing. And so the double taper is what I would highly recommend. And then your leader design, and that's so important. So you have to have a leader that connects from the fly line to your fly. And you can buy leaders today that are well formed, well thought through, and for different occasions, nymphing and dry fly. And the companies can do this for you. And so flies themselves, you know, you start with a couple of patterns, you know, like we know that if you're going to nymph here, the shrimp and the cress bug would be what you would need. But then there are some patterns that are like standard, and they cover a lot of different areas, like the Adams dry fly or the Humphrey for great floatability, and so and different colors and shades. George Harvey said if I only had 4 flies, you know, that would be a Cahill or what we call a sulfur. Then he would have a blue quill. He would have a stonefly, and then he would have maybe something small and dark. So you have black. You have in color. You have the duns in color. You have a brown nymph, so and which would be a sulfur nymph in that color. So, you know, you don't have to have a lot of flies. Just the basic colors and size, and you can cover a lot of territory with it. Okay, now then the next thing is I would seek instruction. I would find somebody that was a good caster, and I would pay the person, or maybe you have a friend that is a good fly fisher, or if you go to a tackle shop, and they would be happy to help you. In most cases, they will, and they will give you a short casting lesson, and you have to be able to cast to get the fly to the fish and on the water. So you have to learn to cast, and that's not earth-shaking, and that can be done in a 20-minute period. And so then the other thing is experience. Then you go on the stream, and it's good to have a guide to help you, and somebody or a good friend that is a fly fisher, or a buddy that's a fly fisher, and they can take you on the stream and give you a lot of insights and a lot of shortcuts in a quick period of time. And so that's the other thing I would do. I would get help, and because if you try to do it yourself and you have no direction, then it can be not a very pleasant experience. So these are my recommendations, and so I think that then when you start to fish, you want line control. That means you don't want to throw a lot of line, because you work right in front of you. The fish aren't out there 5 miles. They're most of the cases, like just a while ago on this stream, the fish were right, probably what, 20 feet away?
Yeah.
30 feet away?
Yeah.
And so it's, you work in front of you, you work short, you have line control, and this is how you learn the game. You have the mic.
Well, thank you, Joe. No, that was great. Talking about flies, there is different type of flies that we use and different type of techniques, known as streamers, dry flies, wet flies, and nymphing. Now I wanted to ask you, if you had to use one technique constantly, every day, what technique would you use and how would you fish it?
From my youth and my father, George Harvey, a great angler. I can name Clyde Scheffler, who taught me. The wet fly, to me, is the way to learn this game. You have working down and across the stream. Not only do you cover a lot of water, but you have line control. And if you hold the rod tip up at an angle, the trout don't grab anything, they inhale. So the slack from the rod tip to your flies gives the fish a chance to pull the fly in. Now, the neat thing about wet flies is the fact that they imitate so many different insects. Sulphurs are coming up, and so many, but they all have to come from down here to up here. And so they're moving all the time. So you have a lot of different insects under the surface, and they're moving as they're coming up to finish their life cycle, and they have a lot of motion as they're coming up. So I'm bouncing by wet flies, and I work down and across, and sometimes when the water's real cold and you're fishing for stock trout, just hold the fly still in a ripple. Let the fish find it. And so but wet fly fishing is the way I would recommend anybody to start, because of the reasons I just gave you.
Joe's gonna real quick just show us a little bit of how he does this. The Cress Bug, they're here year-round, and they work very well in the streams.
This is the fox squirrel.
So he's showing us how to cut it. So do you need special scissors for cutting this fur?
No.
Or just regular scissors?
No, just regular scissors.
Just regular scissors. So when blending, do you buy this at a fly shop, or do you get it like a coffee grinder?
Well, I have a little grinder here. I have a little coffee grinder, and the coffee, after I do this, the coffee's a little hairy, but other than that, no.
Perfect.
So we just take some buck squirrel fur. Now we'll take a little gray squirrel fur.
So you're using both?
Use them both. We'll put them together here. Okay, and we put the little blender on here.
Okay.
Now we have the fur that we're going to use for our fly. And so this is what it looks like. This is it's a mixture. You can see the little touch of red, the dark from the dark fur from the very next to the hide, and it makes a real nice blend.
So everybody here that knows about fly fishing, dubbing is one of the most popular uses when fly tying. Now, when you're fly tying dubbing, what does it imitate?
Well, the nice thing about dubbing, and when you're dubbing, you can dub, your nymphs, your wet flies. The dubbing is an excellent for body work, and it's kind of translucent. It absorbs water. It looks fishy. It looks buggy. Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm going to use a short shank hook, and for viewing purposes I'm going to use a larger hook. I'll use a 12. What was effective today here was a 14, but I think for your viewing experience we'll just have a little larger. And when we put the thread on the hook, and we use our wrist, and we hold the thread up in the air here, and the thread acts like a sliding board as it comes down. And then we need a little wire. This is a brass wire. You can get this at Joann's fabric shop. It's 34 gauge beading wire, and it's perfect for this. And so we catch the, and what this does, when we flatten it, cress bugs are flat, so when we flatten our bug, it imitates the cress bug because it's flat too. Okay. All right, so we got the wire on. Now we need a hackle. So you don't want the fibers on your hackle too long. You want a fiber like this that will be just about the right length and for the legs. And we just put that on very quickly, and we wrap it back right to the base. Okay. Now we take our fur, and this first joint right here on our finger, we just take a little fur and we lay it right in that little joint and spin it. And now you have to be careful. Don't take a lot of fur at one time. I'm going to kind of taper it a little bit. Okay. Now we wrap. I'll add a little more fur here to it. We want this to be buggy.
Yeah, the buggy part is very important.
A little extra here we don't need. And we'll add just another touch of, we want this just in the water, we want it to kind of come alive. A little more off there. Okay, now, put this down here somewhere so it doesn't blow away. And we take our hackle, and this hackle is a grizzly hackle, and we just wrap it right up through. And in behind it. Trim it off. Smooth the head up a little bit. Secure it. Now we take our wire and we put this in. I wiggle it back and forth as I wrap it. And what this does, it kind of, and I'm not putting a lot of pressure. It's very light because then it will flatten better. Up in the front here and tie it off. Now we take the top off. They don't have legs on the side, so I trim them off too. Okay, now I take my pliers. Well, first I better tie it off. This tie, I take 2 fingers, I bring the bobbin over, I make an X, I drop the bobbin on the bottom part of the X twice, run it up, take it over the eye and take it off, do a couple of these. And there we have a cress bug. Now, like I said, we'll flatten it. Trim the edges a little bit more. Okay. So this is the cress bug, and today this is the 12, and in some areas, like you might say, some streams have much larger cress bugs. We find some here. Let's take a look at a cress bug.
Yeah.
We gathered a couple here, and maybe we can find a larger one.
Would you like me to show it to the camera?
Try to hold here. Okay, now I don't know whether you can see this or not, but this is the smaller cress bug. This would be if I were to tie one this size, it would be like on a number 16 or 18, which would be deadly because this is what we have here. But in some areas, all right, now hold this and I'll wet this one. Now, that's what this is all about. This is a great imitation. And it took me years to figure this out, but I experimented and finally figured that I have the legs in the bottom, it's flat on top, the bug is flat, it moves back and forth, the interplay of the current on the flattened surface moves it, and so it's very effective, as we did see earlier. Do we have pictures of those fish today?
Yes, we do, but I don't have it quick enough to show.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
No, that was great, Joe. I mean, it looked almost exactly what it realistically looked. I'm just going to ask you just a couple quick questions regards to the fly. Why is this effective in our local spring creeks? Why is this fly especially?
Think about this. You have two insects that are in this stream year-round. You have the cress bug and you have the freshwater shrimp. They are there. They are a constant. Now you have all kinds of hatches going on. You have caddis hatches, you have sulfur hatches, and whatever. But when there's nothing hatching and you're nymphing, what are you going to fish in Spring Creek? You've got two choices. You've got the freshwater shrimp, you've got the cress bug. So I didn't even think about what was hatching today. I know that the caddis are hatching. I know that I have patterns that will very well match that. But rather than try to figure out what facet or what phase of a caddis hatch to imitate, I know that the cress bug and the freshwater shrimp are there. And so I said, I don't have time to guess. So I put the cress bug on and in 20 minutes took two fish. Okay.
Perfect, thank you, Joe. So we're probably going to get on to our next section here of questions. A lot of people heard that you go nighttime fishing a lot, and they just wanted to ask, what type of fly, type of leader, where are the safeties of going out at night? Just any tips on that, and that's going to be the question.
One of the things you'll have to think about at night fishing, never go on a stream that you don't know very well in the daytime. Because if you go on water that you don't know, you can very well lose your life. You can drop off a ledge, you can get into deep water, then fast water that you can lose your life in a hurry. So I never fish a stream that I don't know very well. I analyze it. How much line will I be working with basically as I'm working this patch of water. When I'm viewing the far bank, are there overhanging limbs? At one point when I'm working this patch of water, I'm going to have to adjust the cast. I'm going to have to tighten the loop up to get the flies back under the limbs. And so you want to really know your water well, and you want to work the water in the daytime with a fly line. Just work it. Make your cast. Follow your flies through the drifts, and get to know the best holding water. Alongside of maybe a good velocity change along the edge of a heavy riff might be the best, or where a nice riff behind some the big boulders might be a great holding line. So you analyze this as you work the stream, and then at night you're ready. And secondly, when you're waiting, just take your time. The night game is a slow game. You're fishing very, very slowly, and you're working bigger. I work bigger flies. A lot of people, when in this night game, they feel that they have to work the top and the mouse patterns, and they're working the surface. But all the huge fish I've taken, I'm not saying so huge. My record fish is a 16 pounds, 34 inches. That's a good fish. But just think, the world record on the Little Red River in Arkansas was 40 pounds, 4 ounces, and it was 42 inches long. So we're talking big fish. And these big fish take deep, they take down. And so when I'm working, I'm working a pair of big flies at night. I can be, the big fish I've hooked have been in Arkansas, have been on big sculpin patterns with lots of movement tied in. But I also use wet flies, and I have a pattern that imitates a stone fly. It's a big wet fly pattern. And so, and then once in a while, yeah, I enjoy putting on a mouse pattern and working the top. So and here's another facet of night fishing that nobody even thinks about. I nymph at night when I'm, as an example, the sulfur hatch is on, and then and everybody's fishing, and the surface and the fish are rising, and some people are nymphing and they're catching some fish, and it's a wonderful experience. And then it gets dark, so everybody goes home. I don't. I have a pair of sulfur nymphs on, and I have a line that I can see. Now you can't, it's amazing how well your eyes adjust at night. And so I'm watching that line, and when it stops or slows down or goes another direction, I pull, because at night the fish are far more deliberate. They don't pick and spit real quick. They'll just pick it up and hold it longer. And so when that line stops, I set the hook, and I've had some absolutely marvelous days. And so I wanted to, I have a night fishing video, and I wanted people to understand this. So I went to the Yellow Breeches and we filmed this, and I caught several fish just working. Number 12, sulfur nymphs, and number 14s, that's small. So that shows you that the fish, they have an excellent vision at night. It's not as big a window, but it is an excellent vision. So this night game is exciting because big fish are nocturnal. And think about this. Your food chain is basically what the big fish eat is nocturnal. Crayfish move at night. They're nocturnal. Sculpins don't move in the daytime. Sculpins, which is I call it the strawberry shortcake of a big trout's diet. That little ugly-looking little minnow, and sometimes they can be a couple inches or maybe 4 or 5 inches long, but that's dessert for a big fish. So I work sculpin patterns, and so then there's so many facets. There's nymphing, and your bigger patterns, and then I'll use a big streamer at night sometimes, but you fish them slow. You don't fish fast, because when big fish, it takes them a while to find it, and flies that have a lot of movement in it, I think they pick up their lateral lines pick up that movement, and so you fish slow, you make them come alive. And I think if you do what I'm saying, what you should do, you'll have a lot of success. You're going to catch fish that you never caught before. And so even your hatches are nocturnal. When your biggest hatches, like your green drakes, are coming off, when did they hatch? They're really, the hatch is prolific after dark. And then I use big wet flies to imitate what the nymphs coming up, and catch big fish. So it's an exciting game, and if you're not afraid of the dark, give it a try.
A lot of people ask me, the difference between night fly fishing and streamer fishing. Like, what's kind of like the difference? Do you usually do it at night, like everything at night, or during the day? Or when you're streamer fishing, what do you imitate? Do you just imitate fish, mice, or anything else like that? Do you just attract the more aggressive fish? Can you explain a little bit more about what streamer fishing is?
Well, streamer fishing, and basically you're imitating another fish. There are a variety of bait fish, and the redfin minnow, there's a myriad of them. And so here again, when you're working a patch of water that has a lot of clarity to it, lots of times they can see so well, and they don't chase that much in the daytime, and so when you fish a streamer, it's important. Now, when I like to fish a streamer is when we've had a rain and that water is a tad off color, and then it's easier for fish to trap minnows and bait big trout. Trying to capture a minnow in clear water, they don't have any success because the bait fish can see them too well, and they stay clear of a big fish in the daytime in clear water. So your chances are not nearly as great as they are after dark and early morning, with much less light intensity, when that water is clear. But then when that water starts to cloud up, then you can fish throughout the day and have a lot of success. And then colors, sometimes a white streamer I like to work and when the water's off color, but sometimes they back off, and so I go to black. I make it come alive, and lots of times I learned from Ed Shank, one of the top guns. He's no longer with us, but he loved to fish his sculpin, a black sculpin, right along the very edge of the bank. He would stay back from the bank, and he would work the bank. And so just moving to let it sink and just move it back and forth. He would put a split shot right on the nose of the streamer, and that gives it this move. And when you're lifting the line in the leader and dropping it, it goes like this. And so with that movement, the movement of a sculpin, it's deadly. And so there's so many different ways of working streamers. And in big water, even though you have clarity, you can throw more line. And I use what we call the long lines. Portland Line Company made this line for me. Now they call it, the Europeans picked it up. But this line was made for me by Portland many years ago. Back in, I think at the end of the 50s. And so, what's your European system they call?
They call it European nymphing.
European nymphing, well, it's the long line. So this long line is of same diameter, 22 thousandths to the length of the line, just a level line. But it has a fly line finish, and you can shoot a lot of line with it. And your streamers are weighted, or you have additional weight, and you can cover a heck of a lot of water. And in big rivers, you can have a lot of success.
Oh, thank you, Joe. So we're just going to ask a couple more questions, and before we go, we just want to ask a question on, you just got your gear, you're ready, set to go, you're all excited to go on the water, and you look on the water and you come to realize, where's the fish going to be? So can you tell us a little bit about some places where to fish, or where the fish are going to be and why?
Well, you look at your velocity changes, and lots of times fish don't want to fight the currents any more than we do when we're trying to swim. We're going to swim somewhere where we don't have to fight the currents and make some progress. So fish are the same, and they lay in velocity changes on the edge of heavy currents. But also, don't give up the really heavy fast water, because down under that heavy fast water there are boulders and stones that break the water underneath, and there is a great velocity change right down on next to the bottom behind a big boulder in really fast water. So yeah, so it's and when you're working and here again, the nice thing I said about wet flies, not only can I work those velocity changes with wet flies, but I can cover all of the water with wet flies. And I was nymphing, I was night fishing on the Madison River, and I was using this long line I just discussed with you. And I had fishing a pair of big black stone flies. And I was covering not only the velocity changes, but at night you can't see lots of times because it's dark. And so I was covering all of the water the best I could. And the secret here is getting to the bottom with weight adjustment. And so I had the leader long enough that would get me down deeper. But I don't, when I'm fishing at night, I don't go with light, strength-wise, I don't go below probably 8-pound test or 10-pound test, because I don't want to lose a fish of a lifetime. And so when I'm working this kind of water, and I cover as much water as I can, and do try to work the velocity changes. But with those two big stoneflies, I took fish after fish after fish, and the guides, I had a hard time getting them to take me night fishing, because they don't drift at night. But these guides knew the water so well that they said, okay, we'll do it, but we'll stop where we feel that is the best water. And some of the places that they stopped was pretty heavy, fast water. And so I had, with a good weight adjustment and leader adjustment to get down deep, and using the long line, I took a lot of fish, and I took a lot of big fish. And that was very exciting for them and for me. So, yeah, that's just an example of fishing and adjusting to the waters. But velocity changes at the edge of the currents, behind boulders, pockets, this is where you'll find fish.
Well, thank you, Joe. We got about 7 more minutes left. We're probably going to ask again if anybody is interested of asking questions. Joe and I are here ready for questions if anybody wants to ask on the Google Meet.
So when you're fishing at night, do you tend to use like brighter colors in your flies, or do you keep it pretty simple?
No, I like I was saying, those big stone flies that I was using out west were black, with a lot of movement, a lot of stuff tied in that moved in the water. I like black patterns. I will use maybe a brown wing of. Let me see. Take a fox squirrel tail, and the fibers from that fox squirrel tail is a wing, but the rest of the body is black, and the hackles, I wrap a hackle the whole way up the hook, the length of the hook. I palmer it black, and then the head hackle is black. And the hook is big. This is I'm using a number 4 hook, and on some patterns I might go to an 8 or a 6. But I like big hooks. I like big flies, and because I like big fish. And so dark patterns are, I think, the best go-to. And when fishing mice and other topwater bugs, I like dark patterns again. So Once in a while, I've had them on some rigs. A light color fly might be all right, but I think they see better at night. The silhouette of a dark pattern better at night than they do anything else.
Well, thank you, Joe. Does anybody want to ask any other questions?
Yeah, hey Carson. Quick question. That's for both of you. If you could have only 5 flies in your box, what 5 flies would you use? Just best to use, easiest to cast, easiest to use, stuff like that.
The best 5 flies I would use is definitely the Cress Bug, is Joe Tide. They're here year-round, and they work very well in our streams. And especially in the winter too, because when everything starts to die down, and the silhouettes or any type of insects will die down, the Cress Bug is only going to be the one there. The second one would be called the Frenchie. The Frenchie I like to tend to use on stocked water due to of its hot spot or orange spot or red spot on the fly. The fly is tied with a pheasant tail, and it's tied with a dubbing, which Joe used. It's going to be a little bit different. It's not made out of natural hair, or it could be, but mostly it's made out of sewing material or any type of flash. The third fly I would use is probably, okay, perfect. Okay, so we got an example from Joe here of what a Frenchie is. I'll show it to the screen. And we also have different type of flies that work our seasonal water. And that would be the green weenie, or other known as the moth fly. And it could be in a variety of colors, and it might imitate different type of patterns in the water. You have a green one Joe just showed, which imitates a caterpillar, and you have a tan one, and there's another type of species of fish in the water called a sucker. And when they lay their eggs, it's a tan color and it's long, and the fish will definitely be eating on that. The fourth fly I would probably use is called the France fly, and the France fly is a tiny bit different, a newer pattern, not as old as the original scud or cress bug patterns, but it's new, and they imitate an insect called a blue-winged olive. You can have it in a green color. It's called a stretch tubing material which you use to tie the fly, the France fly. And the last fly is not a nymph, but it's also a streamer. I had to use a white zonker streamer. And as Joe said before too, they really work well after a good rain. And I just pull out that pattern and I work the banks. And no matter where else, you could be on Spring Creek or any place else. It can also work in warm water, which is lakes or ponds. You can catch bass, trout, or pike, or any type of predatory fish. And those are my top flies that I would use, that I personally use in my lifetime, that always worked. And now we're getting ready for Joe. He pulled out some flies for us. I'll show to the screen. And he's pulling out some nymphs, wet flies, and some streamers. These look like really good flies. Okay, I'm going to show it to the camera real quick. Yep.
Okay, now, these are, I don't know whether you can see these flies or not, but this is a streamer that is like on off-colored water. It is deadly, okay? And this little guy right here can imitate a sculpin, can imitate anything that a little minnow, but more like a sculpin. And when you put, and that has weight on the head, that has a bead, but I also put a split shot on the head, and so that's a deadly fly. Okay. Now, if you're a wet fly man, and I love to fish wet flies, and one fly that people don't think much about or use anymore, but this is for my top fly is a royal coach. And that little fly imitates bait fish, and the white wings can be seen in off-colored water, but it is an attractor pattern, and lots of times fish will turn for it or see it and then not take it, but take the next fly down. And the next fly down, this is my sulfur wet fly, which is absolutely deadly. And when the sulfur hatches on, don't be without that one. And if you want to know how to tie it, that'll be another 25 bucks.
There you go.
And then you have the sulfur nymph. And this sulfur nymph is deadly. And this is the one when everybody goes home, I stay with that sulfur nymph after dark. But when that sulfur hatches on, that's a winner. Now I talked about the big black stone and the stone that I fished on the Madison at night. This is one of them. It's not the biggest stone, but that's the pattern. And because those big black stones at night, they move and they still are very effective in our streams here. Spring Creek, all of them, because of they're so buggy. And then we know that this is the green weenie, and because we have the green worm dropping off the oak leaf roller that drops off the trees. And this is deadly from the second week in June the rest of the year, because they are so prolific and those fish condition to them so they know what they are. And then this is with a little touch of orange here, this is a freshwater shrimp. Now that's a big one, and I pulled that one out. That is nothing but fox fur and a little touch of orange on the head. And that has taken a heck of a lot of fish in a smaller pattern. But I gave you that pattern so you can see what the tie really does look like. And so then, did you show them the Frenchie?
Oh, no, not yet.
Okay, all right. And this right now, when they're stalking right now, the Frenchie is a deadly pattern.
No, just separate.
Even I can catch a fish on it.
Okay, and there we go. Here's the Frenchie. There's the hot spot right there.
So that's just, is the Frenchie just another name for sexy whelps?
It's a tad bit different. It's just a different imitation. This one's with pheasant tail. The sexy waltz, it's with the just dubbing, just like the Cress Bug.
And this is the stone fly. And this stone fly, on larger sizes, it does imitate a stone fly. But on smaller sizes, it can very well imitate any early season insect. It can very well imitate any mayfly because of the yellow body and the dark top. So I think that we covered. And then what would you say? You know that one?
Like a pheasant tail.
That is a pheasant tail.
Yep.
All right, and the pheasant tail is one for year round, and you need that in your box, because if you're not too sure what they're moving on, just tie that on. Particularly if you have mayflies hatching, and that's a great all-purpose nymph.
Awesome, thank you so much, Joe. Okay, so we're kind of running out of time right now. Any last minute questions? Yeah.
I heard you talking about that you Euronymph, and I Euronymph too, and I was wondering, typically you use like heavily weighted flies. Do you ever use split shot?
Do you use split shot when you're Euronymphing?
Yeah, like today, when I went out here and I knew that the water was a little faster than and I knew my nymphs, my cress bugs would not have time that they needed for the fish to see them and take them. So I added a split shot, and then in the heavier currents, my flies were going to, my two nymphs were drifting too fast, and fish don't chase and they don't try to capture anything moving fast away from them. So I realized that I didn't have time. My nymphs were going by me too fast in the water I was fishing, so I added another split shot, and so that slowed the whole rig down, and I ended up with a pair of trout just on the weight adjustment. So yes, split shot are very important. You need to hold those flies in those productive areas as long as you can, and that's where your split shot come in.
Thank you, Joe.
I have a question. Do you guys use indicators, like for nymph fishing?
Like a bobber or something like that?
Yeah.
Do you use a bobber? Okay. So Joe does not. He senses the line when he's fly fishing. When he's making a drift, he's kind of more of like a 90-degree angle or like kind of right triangle shape. And what he'll do is that when it's drifting, the line will either stop, hesitate, or anything else like that. Or even if you feel it, and he'll set the hook downstream, down the stream, and that's basically how he's going to indicate if he has a fish or not.
So then how long of a rod would you use for that?
I was using a 9-foot today.
Okay, he was using a 9-foot today. Anybody else? Any questions?
Are there any fly patterns that you like to tie that you prefer to use synthetic dubbing than organic?
Probably the only material or synthetic material I use for flies or a fly pattern that I usually use is probably the Frenchie. It's more of a material. Does that answer your question, Daniel?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're probably gonna make this a wrap. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and I enjoyed being with you, and it's been a pleasure. And I hope that what we've talked about today was informative, and I hope would help somebody. So what you want to do now, with all this wonderful information, you want to get your fly rod and head for the stream.
Thank you, Joe. So thank you for watching Happy on the Fly. It was a great day out here on the water. Just make sure to please subscribe and smash that like button. We'll see you next time. Till then, tight lines and stay fishy. Thank you for watching my interview with Joe Humphreys. If you loved the video, please leave a comment. We'd love to hear back from you. If you want to see more content like how-tos and videos, please click the link here, or just subscribe. We'll see you next time. Till then, tight lines and stay fishy.